Have you ever felt this massive gap between your towering ambitions and your actual day-to-day
Oh,
abilities?
yeah, constantly.
Right. It's that creeping, unsettling sensation where your brain is sketching out these grand, world-changing blueprints.
Yeah.
But then,
Then you actually try to build the thing.
exactly, you go to build it, and you find yourself holding like a plastic hammer and a couple of bent nails.
It's brutal.
It is. It's a very specific, very human kind of frustration.
Hmm.
Because you look at what you want to achieve, and then you look at what you are actually capable of executing on, say, a random Tuesday, and the distance between those two things is just, it's paralyzing for you.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
So today, we are going into a deep dive on a beautifully raw confession of exactly that feeling. We're looking at a translated essay. It's titled Reflections on Life, written by Deiform Buddha on December 1st, 2006.
And edited by Kinyu.
Right, edited by Kinyu. And our mission today is to explore this profound existential journey. We're tracking how this author moves from a place of just crushing self-doubt all the way to finding this massive unifying life purpose.
And we really need to unpack this because the imagery in this text is, well, it's stunning
Oh, it's so poetic.
and vulnerable.
Yeah, it doesn't hold back at all. It is a phenomenal piece of writing because it functions as a brutal self-audit.
Self-audit, I like that phrase.
Because it's true. This isn't just a collection of pretty abstract metaphors. It's a roadmap for finding meaning, particularly late in life. When you feel the clock is running out and you're forced to look in the mirror without any of the usual filters.
Yes, filters at all.
Right. When you read this, you are stepping into the mind of someone diagnosing their own human condition. They are mapping out the tragedy of having an infinite consciousness, but it's trapped within a very finite, fragile, and let's be honest, often incapable physical vessel. Yeah, the way they start that diagnosis is striking. The author describes descending into this world, seeking the way with a capital W, mind you, to live as an authentic person.
Mm-hmm.
They talk about gazing at the stars in search of life's path and deeply wanting to aid all living beings. So it's this massive cosmic level of intention.
But then comes the crash.
Right, the crash.
Mm-hmm.
Despite all these grand aspirations, they just straight up admit their talents are terribly meager.
Mm.
And they use this contrasting metaphor that I just can't stop thinking about.
Oh, the pang and the sparrow.
Yes. They describe having the appetite of a giant pang, but with the wings of a sparrow. Now, for context for you listening, the pang is a massive mythical Chinese bird that can literally swallow oceans.
Yeah, the pang represents boundless scale. I mean, in Chinese mythology, it's this leviathan of the heavens. It's a creature whose wings can obscure the clouds themselves.
Wow.
So if you possess the appetite of this mythical beast, your internal hunger for meaning, for impact, for understanding the universe, it's absolutely insatiable.
But then you pair that immense hunger with,
With the frantic, tiny, fragile wings of a common garden sparrow,
yeah,
it perfectly captures that agonizing disconnect. You have a soul built for the stratosphere, but your physical and mental machinery can barely get you over the garden fence.
that is exactly it. It's like having the visionary software of a tech genius, but the hardware of like a dial-up 90s computer.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Right. Like the brain wants to download the entire universe. It wants to run these incredibly complex simulations of how to save humanity. But the wings, the actual processing power, can only handle a few megabytes at a time before just crashing entirely.
That analogy hits the nail on the head. It highlights the mechanical failure of the self.
Mm-hmm.
The author continues to drive this point home, too. They describe their thoughts surging like an endless flowing mighty river, and their aspirations soaring like white clouds around the majestic Mount Tai.
Mount Tai, that's a huge symbol, right?
Yeah. Huge. It's one of the sacred mountains of China, symbolizing immense stability, history, and spiritual elevation. So internally, they have relentless, powerful movement and these towering sacred heights.
Right.
But when they look at their actual tangible abilities to manifest those internal landscapes in the real world, they describe their abilities as barren, like a saline wasteland.
Saline wasteland. I mean, that is such a heavy image because it's not just a desert where there happens to be no water.
No, not at all.
A saline wasteland is earth that has been actively poisoned by salt.
Right, exactly. Think about the historical context of salting the earth. It represents total, irreversible barrenness.
Yep.
It means no matter how much water you pour on it, no matter how many grand thoughts or surging rivers of ambition flow through your mind, nothing can ever grow there. The soil itself rejects life.
That is so bleak.
It is. The author is looking at their own hands, their own skills, and realizing that they are fundamentally incapable of bearing fruit. But acknowledging this painful gap between aspiration and reality, that's the necessary, agonizing first step to authentic self-awareness.
So they have to face it.
They do. They are admitting that they haven't achieved anything real. They've merely been preserving their existence, compromising, and blending into the background noise of mediocrity.
Which leads to this terrifying realization they have. They say they haven't repaid heaven for granting them life, nor have they eased humanity's confusion. And you can really feel the weight of time slipping away in the text here. They mention their allotted years nearing their end and finding themselves having accomplished almost nothing.
It's the brutality of hindsight.
It really is. When you realize your hardware is completely outdated and your soil is salted, your natural human instinct is to look back at the time you wasted.
Yeah.
And that's where the author just hits absolute rock bottom.
Yeah, the text moves into a phase of intense, incredibly uncomfortable self-reflection.
The self-audit becomes visceral. I mean, the author writes that they feel they have betrayed everything. They literally list betraying heaven, their mission, the nurturing of nature, the kindness of their parents, the teachings of sages, and even the expectations of the younger generations.
They systematically look at every single pillar of meaning in a human life. Ancestors, descendants, nature, divinity, and they declare themselves completely lacking across the board.
And the vocabulary they use to describe themselves here, I mean, hold on. This is where I actually have to push back a little on the author's logic.
Okay, go for it.
Because the self-judgment just becomes extreme. The author claims to be utterly useless. They say they're literally less valuable than a pile of manure.
Yes, that is a strong statement.
Right. And their logic is that, well, at least a pile of manure nourishes flowers and grass. Then they say they are less useful than a muddy puddle of water, because at least a puddle offers a drink to a passing mountain sparrow.
It's very self-deprecating.
It's extremely. They talk about muddling through life, growing fat and sluggish, and having accomplishments as scarce as footprints in shifting sands. So I have to ask you, is this level of self-flagellation actually productive?
That's a fair question.
I mean, calling yourself less useful than literal manure seems incredibly harsh. Is this just like clinical despair, or is there a functional purpose to this kind of absolute ego destruction?
Well, it raises an important point, and it's a very natural reaction for you to have when reading something this severe. To modern ears, especially in a culture that really champions self-esteem and positive affirmations.
Exactly. We're all about self-love now.
Right. So this sounds like a catastrophic loss of self-worth. But if we look at this through the lens of profound philosophical and spiritual traditions, this isn't mere depression. It is a deliberate, functional clearing of the ego.
Okay, a clearing of the ego.
Yes. The author isn't beating themselves up just for the sake of wallowing in misery. They are dismantling the false self. They mentioned earlier that they squandered golden time on trivial pursuits, and that their 7 emotions and 6 desires overflowed, which, clouded their vision.
So by calling themselves manure, they are performing like a controlled demolition on their own vanity.
That's a perfect way to phrase it.
They're trying to find the absolute floor of their self-worth.
Exactly. We build our identities around our potential, around our intelligence, around our status. By comparing themselves to a pile of manure or a muddy puddle, the author is aggressively stripping away all societal status, all intellectual pride, all vanity.
They're leaving nothing behind.
Nothing. They're asking a brutal, functional question. If I remove all my delusions of grandeur, what am I actually providing to the world right now?
And the answer they arrive at is nothing.
Right. The manure is biologically contributing to the nitrogen cycle, It is creating life. The puddle is sustaining the sparrow. But the author realizes that by indulging in fleeting pleasures, by avoiding hardship, they haven't even achieved the baseline utility of inanimate, discarded objects.
Oh man, that is a painful psychological mechanism. It's essentially saying, I am so obsessed with being the mythical pang bird that I refuse to do the humble work as the manure.
Exactly.
Because they do say they couldn't endure hardships and contented themselves with minor joys, just fumbling through life in a haze. If we bring this into the modern day, this is incredibly relatable for you, the listener.
Oh, absolutely.
We might not describe ourselves as growing fat and sluggish in a literal sense, but think about the modern equivalents. Think about doom scrolling for hours, or staying in a comfortable but totally unfulfilling job.
Or choosing the fleeting pleasure of another streaming binge over doing the hard, grinding work of building something meaningful.
Yes. We trick ourselves into thinking we are preserving our energy for our grand ambitions, when in reality, we are just wasting our golden time.
The illusion of potential is often the greatest enemy of actual utility. You can't build a new, sturdy foundation until you've completely cleared the old, rotten one.
Right.
That is the psychological necessity of ego death. The author had to hit this absolute bottom where they accept their total lack of contribution in order to clear the slate.
Okay, that makes sense. It's a strategic leveling of the site before new construction begins. But here's where it gets really interesting.
The pivot.
The pivot. Because after this complete annihilation of the ego, you might expect a person to just give up, to say, well, I'm worse than manure, there's no hope for me, time to just fade away.
But they don't.
They don't. Instead, this total destruction creates a vacuum.
Yeah.
And into that vacuum comes something completely unexpected. We pivot to the catalyst that suddenly gives the author a way to bypass all their physical limitations. And of all things, it's technology.
Yeah, the sudden shift in tone is remarkable. Out of the darkness of this existential saline wasteland, the author abruptly expresses deep gratitude to heaven, earth, and the greatest creator of all things, the miracle of the internet age.
It's such a fascinating contradiction for us to chew on today. Think about it today. If you asked someone what is causing them to waste their golden time, what is drowning them in trivial pursuits, they will almost certainly point to the internet.
Oh, 100%.
We view our phones and computers as the ultimate distraction engines. They are the shifting sands where our attention goes to die.
But back in 2006...
Right. In 2006, this author viewed the internet as a literal divine miracle. It was the ultimate loophole. The internet bypassed their barren abilities and their sparrow wings and allowed their vast, Mount Tai-sized mind to finally reach the masses without needing a strong physical vessel.
The contrast between that 2006 techno-optimism and our modern techno-pessimism is really stark.
It is.
But for this author, the internet democratized purpose. They explicitly admitted just a few lines earlier, I cannot farm nor labor well. In a traditional, physical, agrarian, or even industrial sense, they felt useless.
They couldn't contribute physically.
Right. But the internet provided an entirely new landscape.
Mm.
It didn't require physical strength or societal connections or traditional resources. It only required the mind.
Mm-hmm.
The internet acts as a pure, frictionless interface between consciousness and the world. The author says they now scour my mind to write articles, sharing my initial thoughts to inspire wisdom in others. It transformed their paralyzing existential dread into actionable, immediate service.
They finally found their medium, the hardware caught up to the software.
Exactly.
And because they had already undergone that ego death, their use of the internet is completely different from how most people use it. Like they aren't trying to become a famous influencer.
No, not at all.
They say the goal of this digital sharing is to pave a path for many, to clear karma, repay debts, fulfill my duties, and accumulate merit for a better future. It's incredibly pragmatic.
It is.
They took this infinite, crushing spiritual debt they felt they owed to the universe, and they basically set up a repayment plan via a dial-up connection. They're literally uploading their salvation.
This is exactly why the earlier ego destruction was functionally required.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, the author is no longer trying to be the giant peng for their own glory or to prove how smart they are. They are offering all the complex thoughts they've cultivated to the world solely to be of service.
Technology is just the conduit.
Right. They've realized they don't need to be this physically heroic, universally admired figure to change the world. They just need to extract the wisdom they've gathered during all those years of silent, agonizing observation and just give it away for free.
So if the internet has provided the conduit, what is the actual substance flowing through it? What is this ultimate truth the author is sacrificing their remaining time to share?
This brings us to the grand finale of the author's mission.
And the scope of what they're trying to achieve is breathtaking.
It really is. Now that the vessel is empty of ego and the internet has provided the stage, the author reveals the ultimate goal. They want to usher in the Lifechanyuan era for all who labor in this world.
Okay, we need to unpack that term for a second because Lifechanyuan carries a lot of weight.
It does. To understand the author's mission, we have to look at what that word represents. Life in this context refers to vitality, existence, the universal energy.
Okay.
Chan is the Chinese word for Zen or deep meditation, and Yuan often translates to a courtyard, a garden, or an origin. So Lifechanyuan is essentially a vision of a spiritual Eden, a Zen garden of existence.
A Zen garden of existence. I love that.
It is an era of harmony, peace, and elevated consciousness. But what makes this author's vision truly unique is who it is for. They explicitly state this is for the laboring masses.
Right. It's not just for elite monks meditating on a mountain somewhere. It's for the everyday people who are dealing with their own sparrow wings and bent nails.
Yes.
And to build this Lifechanyuan era, the author does something incredible. They pull from everywhere. They talk about reflecting the greatest creator's boundless grace, revealing the profound principles of the Tao, spreading Jesus's boundless love, and promoting Buddha's boundless compassion.
It's highly synthetic.
It's like the ultimate philosophical crossover event. The author is pulling the core teachings from Christianity, Buddhism, Taoism, and the Creator, and just weaving them together into one grand, unified theory of life.
The mechanism of synthesizing these massive philosophies is crucial here. The author is looking at the fragmentation of human belief. For centuries, humanity has fought over the differences between these traditions, right?
Yeah, constantly.
Well, the author is attempting to weave them into a single, cohesive path, the path of life, which they often capitalize to denote its supreme importance.
Interesting.
They want to merge the finite span of human existence into the infinite dimensions of life and time. They're essentially arguing that all these great avatars, Jesus, Buddha, the sages of the Tao, they're all pointing at the exact same moon.
And the author's mission, leveraging the reach of the internet, is to synthesize those teachings to help humanity walk the way of the greatest creator and unite with the creator as one.
Exactly.
It's a staggering transition. I mean, we went from a person crying over feeling less useful than a puddle of muddy water to a person actively trying to unite human consciousness with the infinite dimensions of space and time.
It's quite the leap.
It is. But what really anchors this entire text for me are the closing metaphors. They are so poignant, especially after understanding the psychological journey they've been on.
The silkworm and the candle?
Yes. The author pledges to work tirelessly. They say they will swallow tears and keep grievances to themselves. And then they compare the remaining life to two things: a silkworm that spins its final thread and a candle that burns to its last flicker.
Those are two of the most evocative metaphors for ultimate terminal sacrifice in classical literature.
Terminal sacrifice.
Yeah, because this isn't just about working hard or finding a comfortable hobby in retirement. Think about the silkworm. It literally gives its own essence, its own bodily fluid, to create something beautiful, valuable, and protective silk for others.
And the process kills it.
Right. In the process of harvesting that silk, the silkworm is consumed. It leaves absolutely nothing for itself. Similarly, the candle provides light to guide others through the darkness, but the very mechanical act of providing that light requires the destruction of the candle's own wax and wick.
It's a complete, exhausted dedication. It's not about maintaining a healthy work-life balance.
Yeah.
It's about giving every last drop.
The author is willingly choosing to burn themselves down. They are saying, I know I have wasted my golden time. I know my physical vessel is flawed and my wings are weak, but I will take whatever finite, meager fuel is left in me and I will ignite it. I will burn it entirely to ensure my journey in this world is finally worthwhile. It is the ultimate triumphant rejection of the mediocrity they lamented at the beginning of the text.
They're no longer compromising.
No. They are no longer blending into the background. They are actively consuming themselves for a higher purpose.
That is a phenomenal way to frame it. Let's synthesize this journey for you, the listener, because we have covered a massive amount of philosophical ground today.
We really have.
We started with this painfully relatable realization of having the wings of a sparrow, but the appetite of a giant peng. That agonizing gap between what you want to achieve and what your hardware can actually handle. We walked through the absolute darkness of the author feeling less useful than a pile of manure, which we realized was actually a necessary mechanism for ego death.
A vital step.
Then we found this unexpected salvation in the early internet, a technological miracle that allowed a self-described physically useless person to spread a massively unifying spiritual message. And finally, we arrived at the image of the candle burning itself down to the very end, all to usher in a unified Zen garden for the working class.
It is a remarkable trajectory from absolute paralysis to sacrificial action.
It really is.
And, if we look closely at the role the internet played in this transformation, it leaves us with a deeply provocative question for our own lives.
What's that?
Well, the author viewed the digital world of 2006 as a miracle that allowed their thoughts to endure. But in today's hyper-saturated digital age, we have to wonder, has the internet become the very shifting sands the author feared?
Oh, wow.
When we pour our grand ambitions and our final threads of energy into digital content, into social media or online discourse, are we actually leaving a permanent mark, or are we just adding to the noise, watching our footprints get washed away by the next algorithm update?
That's a scary thought.
It forces us to ask whether true purpose is found in the permanence of what we leave behind, or simply in the act of being willing to burn for something greater than ourselves, regardless of who actually remembers the light.
Because in the end, it's not about whether you have the wings of a sparrow or the wings of a giant pang. It's about what you choose to do with the sky you've been given.